There are a lot of people that would love to learn about herbal medicine, but have almost no idea where to start, where to even begin, because there is so much information to sort through. My name is Sam Coffman, and I would like to tell you about 3 of my favorite herbs. These are herbs that can be found almost all over the U.S. They can be used for a wide variety of needs, and they can be used very easily. And I'll tell you all about that. First, let's talk a little bit about all of the different things that you need to consider when you start to learn about herbal medicine. Just the subjects themselves, from botany and wildcrafting and plant ID to medicine making, how you actually use the herbs once you've made medicine from them. What about the actual physiology and pathophysiology of the human body and how that works in relation to the herbs? Western medicine is very pathophysiology oriented. How does that work? How do those two worlds go together? Then what about herbal first aid, just general acute conditions? What about chronic conditions? What about trauma and working with that? What about psychological issues and issues around stress and all of the different things that are related to chronic issue too? All of these different worlds that are related in medicine, both chronic and acute flare-ups of chronic conditions. I mean, it just goes on and on just on the medicine side, let alone when we start talking about working with plants, understanding plants, IDing plants, making medicine out of plants, understanding the constituents in plants that we have to work with in order to make better medicine. All of these things and more are issues that you probably face when you're trying to figure out what to learn, let alone growing the herbs, and then how to be a gardener in the first place, and how to work with soil, and how to work with herbs, and how to pick the herbs in your location, and what's going to work in your area. All of these things and so much more come together in the world of herbalism that it is really, I can understand, I hear this all the time from students, that it's very overwhelming. It's a very overwhelming task. And not only that, but how do we keep common sense in the picture as well, right? Herbalism is medicine. And whether you like it or not, whether you understand this or not, if you're going to learn herbalism, if you're going to try to work with herbs, you are working with medicine, and you have to have a responsibility toward that concept, right? First, do no harm. You have to understand what red flags are there if somebody's coming to you for help, or you're helping a family member, a loved one, whatever. What are the red flags that this is a person who needs higher care, for instance? What are the red flags that tell you this is someone that's beyond my ability to work with? Just that alone, let alone all of the different things that incorporate into the epidemiology, the concept of the source of disease in the different cultures that we live in, the societies that we live in. We live in a very first world environment in America for the large part. In some places we're very underserved. There's a huge disparity in there in terms of what different disease processes you might see. So all of this is huge, right? This is a lot of information. How do we break all of this down? Now, I want to tell you about those 3 herbs in just a minute, but first, let me tell you about how we break down the curriculum at Herbal Medics Academy, aka the Human Path. We are able to break down this information in an online setting that is live and interactive. First, we have a 6-week Introduction to Beginners course that comes along with the Introduction for Professionals, the 12-week course. So in total, you get 18 weeks. And for some people, they want that 6 weeks, and that's what they need because they don't know anything about herbs at all. For other people, they already know something, and they kind of breeze through that 6 weeks and cherry pick the pieces that they like off of it. You can do it on your own and figure out what you like. But the 12 weeks, this is the meat of this course. This is where you get 2-hour lectures live from me this fall, 2-hour lectures live per week. This allows us to interact. This allows you to interact and chat with other students. This allows us to talk through different assignments and different things we're doing at home, when we're making medicine together, how we're using it, all of those kinds of things. In order for you to make medicine, we actually send you out the resources to do that with. We send you funnels so you can learn how to do percolation tinctures. We send you herbs. We send you materials to be able to make and strain your salves. We send you materials to be able to make multifractional extracts. And we go through all this. So it's a great introduction to herbal medicine making. And then the entire 12 weeks, we go through all the different body systems, right? The respiratory tract, the GI tract, the urinary tract, the cardiovascular system, all these different systems, and how we work with herbs with them, and specifically which herbs, right? There's a materia medica that you get out of this with over 100 herbs in it. So we talk in depth about the herbs, we talk in depth about what we use them for, and we talk in depth about how we use them. And we wrap the whole thing up into a post-disaster and or austere or remote environment to where we have a little kind of scenario online that we work together on that allows us to understand how would we do this, how would we work with these herbs together if we wanted to make a clinic in a remote area. And the reason we do that is because that's what we actually do. We have an outreach organization called Herbal Medics where we actually go into remote areas and we provide free medicine and free herbal clinics for people that are underserved, medically underserved, all over the place, not just in the U.S., but in other countries as well. And so this allows you also to kind of see the whole picture from the standpoint of the human path, which is even wider than the herbalism spectrum. It also gets into making not just medicine, but also all of the structure and infrastructure involved in that. So you get a little tiny bit of that as well, but you get lots and lots of organized herbal first aid and medicine making and gardening and all the pieces in that in our introductory course that get you really up and running to where even if this is the only course you ever take with us, you're going to walk away with so much more confidence about working with herbs. And this is a prerequisite for most of our other more advanced courses. So this course is a 12-week course, and the 6-week course that comes along with it, free of charge, is a great way to get into an organized structure and learn about herbs. Now, let me talk a little bit about those 3 herbs. What are those 3 herbs that I just mentioned that I feel like are my favorite herbs overall to be able to work with? I only picked 3 herbs in the United States that I had to work with. Okay. The first one is marshmallow root, and this could be other mallows as well, not just marshmallow, but common mallow works in there as well. All the citrus species work in there as well. But let's just talk about marshmallow since that's the one that everybody's mostly familiar with. We can use the root or we can use the leaf of that plant. And it is what I call a mucosal vulnerary. In other words, it is an herb that soothes and heals and protects the mucosa of the body. It also stimulates submucosal lymph and submucosal immune system a little bit. So we use it for upper respiratory infections and upper respiratory issues. Everything from just a sore throat, from just talking too much all the time, which I get all the time when I'm giving my lectures and giving my classes, all the way to somebody who's got maybe a bacterial or a viral infection, an upper respiratory infection. That it could include sinus infections as well. We use it for the GI as well, the gastrointestinal tract as well, for the same reason, to be able to restore the mucosa, and for a lot of different reasons. That can be for something where we're dealing with somebody who's recovering from, some sort of IBS type symptoms or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth symptoms, or somebody who's recovering from, who has a problem with gastrointestinal reflux disease, with GERD, or somebody maybe who has had, problems with, ongoing problems with stomach ulcers, and we need to be able to soothe the gut in that way, or soothe the esophagus in that way, or somebody who's dealing with a lot of constipation, a lot of dryness in the gut, and that's a really good moisturizer for that as well. So a lot of different things we can use it for that, and it also is very soothing for the urinary tract. So we can use it for urinary tract infections, for our body's ability to recover from urinary tract infections. Now, I don't use it by itself necessarily, but I do use it a lot, and I usually either multifractional or extract it in a multifractional way, or if we just want to use it as a cold infusion, it's the simplest thing in the world. You can take the herb and you can put it into a mason jar of room temperature water, filtered water, clean, distilled water, whatever, and shake it up and just let that soak, and then you can strain that and you can drink that water, and that gives you that medicinal effect too. You don't even have to heat it. In fact, it works better if you don't heat it. So that's marshmallow. Second one, Oregon grape, or any of the Mahoney species, or many of the berbera species as well. So our barberries, but Mahoney species, let's just talk about that. So Oregon grape. We use the root of that, and we use the leaf of that primarily, and the stems. All of these contain an alkaloid called berberine, and they contain many other very, very potent medicinal constituents. It is both water soluble. The berberine is primarily water soluble, but also alcohol soluble, so we can make a tincture out of it. We can make a tea out of it. The leaves I use for wound healing. The leaves also are very anti-infective in another way that if you take our course, you'll learn about that. And it's one of those that it's got a kind of a yellow color to it for the berberine. It's one of those that's very strong anti-infective, whether it's on the surface of the skin or whether it's internal. So again, if we're talking about something where we had strep throat, or we had some sort of an infection, especially a bacterial infection of the upper respiratory tract, or maybe an ongoing sinus infections that are bacterial in nature, these are the kinds of things that we could use Mahoney for. It's primarily for that, and for the gut, it's also very, very good for the liver. It's what we call a liver decongestant. So people have problems that are related to skin problems like eczema and psoriasis and inflammatory skin conditions. Oftentimes we find that if we can do something with the liver and free up the liver and help detoxify, which is kind of an overused term, but detoxify the liver, help the liver clean or decongest, then a lot of times what happens is we can clear up those more autoinflammatory conditions as well as helping the digestion in a number of ways and issues that might be going on with the digestion because of that. The leaf itself also contains a compound called MHC, which is 5'-methoxyhydrocarbon, which is a very strong anti-infective in conjunction, as sort of a conjunction or adjuvant, we would call it, with other herbs, with other anti-infective herbs. And there's more to that, a lot more to that we would discuss, of course, in our classes. The third herb that I would pick here is actually one that people might be surprised to hear, is skullcap. And that's our Scutellaria laturiflora. And that is, there are many species of skullcap, and most of them are usable and medicinally fairly synonymous. But skullcap gives us something that people are really familiar with, mostly who use it, is that it's a very good, what we call an anxiolytic. It's a very good calming kind of nervine herb. So it helps people with anxiety. It helps people maybe who are having a hard time with sleeping, with a hard time with anxiety, a hard time with PTSD type of issues. Maybe they're having withdrawal issues from some sort of addictions. And that can be not just physical addictions, but all kinds of addictions. Very, very soothing in that way, an excellent herb in that way, and also is soothing to the gut to some extent too. But the other thing about skullcap that a lot of people don't know is that you can use the root of it. So most people use the leaf, and they use even all the aerial parts, but the root is really also very, very medicinal. Now, the root of one of those species called bicolensis, which is bicol skullcap, has a high amount of some constituents in it, one of which is bicolin. Well, the root of our laturiflora, the one that I just talked about for an anxiolytic, for a nervine, also has high amounts of bicolin in it. And so we can get this anti-infective aspect to it too. Bicolin is very useful for a lot of things. One of those is as an anti-infective, and especially for things that are like biofilms, which are bacterial colonization in certain parts of our body that we have, where we have recurring infections, like a urinary tract, for instance. So we find that skullcap root would go very well with something like marshmallow and with our Oregon grape as an anti-infective, whereas the skullcap leaf would be more for the stress relief, and maybe we have issues around our skin problems, for instance, again, that are autoimmune, that are related to stress or related to hormonal stuff, and related to gut and gut problems and just bad food and toxic food and all the things that we have to clean up, of course, on top of the herbs, right? It's not just all about herbs. There's a lot that goes into, we need to know about nutrition. There's a lot we need to understand about food as medicine. We need to know about lifestyle and all those things as well, right? Herbs are just the tip of that pyramid, really. So the skullcap really fits into both of those kind of worlds, the anti-infective side of things, and also the nervine and calming and the calming down of somebody who's constantly living in a lot of stress, and so high levels of cortisol and things that affect our hormones, that affect other hormones throughout our body and cause these issues. So those are our three plants. The last thing I want to say is when you put all this together and you get this knowledge together, your goal probably in there somewhere is to make medicine, perhaps. Maybe you want to have an apothecary, or maybe you want to know more about how to be a clinical herbalist and you want to understand that. We introduce you to all of that as well in this introduction for professionals. We introduce you to how you could become a professional and what are the steps. What is a certified herbalist versus a registered herbalist versus is there such a thing as a licensed herbalist or not? What are all these questions around that, and what kind of words and terms do you need to stay away from when you're working in order to be able to protect yourself legally? And what if you already have a license, you're a licensed healthcare practitioner, but you want to practice as an herbalist too? What are the issues around there? All of these are covered in that introduction for professionals as well. So we put all of that and wrap all of that together, and we give you an incredible 12-week course plus 6 weeks of a prequel of that pre-course, and that is something that's starting up in the next week. And this is the last time I'm going to do it live for probably a couple of years, so it's really important if you want to get that live interaction with me, then this is the time to take it. Now after this, they're still live, but it's live Q&A. It's once a week. It's not quite the same as me doing live lectures twice a week. That's 4 hours of live interaction every single week for 12 weeks. I hope to see you there. I think you're going to love this course, and I hope you got something out of those 3 herbs, and you can add them to your own personal Materia Medica now.